want me to talk? Whoa, yes you do. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. Everybody hearing okay? Different microphones. How about now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We good? Okay, I'm gonna bring them in. We'll start here in a few minutes. By the way, so you can see who's gonna be up here. After Kalani opens, I think we'll just open it up to questions at that point. So when you do ask your questions, just for the sake, especially, I know Jeff knows some of you and many of you, but he's, still getting used to faces and everything. So please say who you are and who you're with. You don't have, we have microphones up here, so we don't have to worry about it getting the microphone. So just do that, and then if you can address the question to who you're asking, so that, obviously it might be better for one of them to answer, and they might defer to the other person. But if you have a question specifically for someone, try to acknowledge that too. Is there any other questions? Anything you guys need? Releases you guys have? If any of you need video or photos, make sure you let us know before you leave, and we can send you those as well. So, or anything else. So. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Oh, there's names on this side too. That's good.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I gave the format, but when we're done, all of our staff's here as well, so if there's someone else you'd like to talk to afterwards, we can do that afterwards. But for right now, we just thank everybody for coming, talking about our signing class for 2018, and we'll just turn the time over to Coach Sitake.
All right. Thank you for being here. It's an exciting time for us. I think there's all the head coaches say the same thing, excited for these new recruits, but we are really excited about the newcomers to our team, the guys that are joining our family. I want to express our appreciation and gratitude to everyone that was involved in getting these young men here, specifically their families. It's an honor for us to get to know their families and get to know these young men. It's also want to show our gratitude to our faculty and staff, our administration, President Worthen, and our Vice President Matt Richardson, our athletic director, Tom Homo, done a great job in being around and being available for our young men to speak to as they came through on the recruiting visits. Want to express our appreciation to our staff, our coaches, our current and former coaches that helped recruit these young men. Also want to express my appreciation to the support staff and the recruiting department that helped us, all the recruiting assistants, and everyone involved. I thought the faculty and staff did a great job on campus of helping our young men out and their families, answering any questions and being available. It's been really nice, and it's an honor for me to have them represent BYU on campus, and it made a huge difference for our players and for our recruits. Also really thankful for our players. They did a great job being ambassadors of the program and hosting these young men and bringing them along. So we're excited about the new coming guys that are going to be part of our group, but we're also really excited about the players that are currently on the roster and looking forward to it. And finally want to thank all the BYU fans that have been there and have helped us in recruiting. I mentioned it before that we've had some member referrals that have been really good for us in recruiting. So asked a couple years ago when I got the job that if we can find some big guys in your ward and that you can please refer them to us, that'd be great. And that happened. And I'd like to add to find some fast and skilled and athletic guys too. So all across the board, if you want to get out and time them in 40s, you can do that. We can't, so you can. It'd be a good mutual activity. So anyways, we're really excited about the connection that we have with our fans and the role that they played in recruiting for us and helping us out, and the ability to have such great fans to reach out through social media and to support our team, but also to support our recruits has been really impressive. And it's one of the things that our recruits mention specifically is the fans in Cougar Nation and the buy-in that they are in athletics, but also to football and recruiting. So that's been really impressive, and just want to open up this time to answer any questions. We have Jeff Grimes, our offense coordinator here, Ed Lamb, our assistant head coach, and our special teams coordinator, and then Eli Satuyaki, our defensive coordinator. So anybody have any questions?
Coach Sitake, just looking at the offensive players that you've been recruiting in this class and brought in, I mean, obviously you were recruiting them before you changed the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. With the changes on the offensive side of the ball, how do these recruits kind of fit into the scheme and philosophy of the offense going forward?
Oh, I mean, first thing was to get Coach Grimes in place, and then obviously we had to work on getting some new hires put in place as well. But I thought the new coaches did a great job at connecting with the recruits and being involved in recruiting. And obviously the coaches that are there, Coach Grimes included, have a great reputation as great recruiters. So it was an easy transition for them to make, and I think being able to communicate and talk to the players was really nice to see. And a lot of the credit goes to our new coaches that came in and jumped right into it and didn't ask any questions, just went right to work and try to get as many guys as they can to get this team to bring more talent to this team.
Kalani, we talked to Ed Lamb last week, Jared Lloyd from the Daily Herald. Wanted to ask you how different this year was with the early signing day in December and then having it kind of broken into these two chunks. What's that been like, this process?
I think it was a huge relief for the recruits and their parents more than anything, rather than having to wait until February. A good number of them were able to sign in December and have a good Christmas break and good holiday season, just relax and enjoy the process of just being a signee. And then we had a good number of them that came on the recruiting visit after signing, and I thought it was a cool dynamic. They helped recruit for us, and they were already bought in from the very beginning, so it was an easy transition for them just to sign. And so I think it was helpful for us. And then it took a little bit of the drama out of it, which is what I like. Less drama is usually good. So, but I think that more than anything, these young men deserve a lot of praise, but when it comes down to it, they're joining a team, and they're guys that are going to have to go right back into the ranks of just trying to find a role and find a chance to play. They're going to compete with a lot of great players that are currently on the team, and that's the focus now shifts a little bit. And I think it's really good for us to just have it done early and then just kind of focus a little bit on the others, but then to give the guys their time off and for their families. I think that has been the most beneficial part of it.
Jeff, Mitch Harper with ESPN 960 and Rivals. What were some of the challenges that you faced getting familiar with this, the recruiting class and the personnel, and getting yourself placed in transitioning from LSU?
It wasn't really hard. The only challenge was the fact that I was still trying to finish another job, but was really excited about the opportunity to get to know the guys that we'd be recruiting, and had great response. And then particularly once the other guys came on board and had the other guys on staff, it made it a whole lot easier. And those guys went out and saw a lot of guys by position, and we double teamed, triple teamed a couple of guys and went and saw guys, particularly a couple of guys that hadn't signed yet. And we felt like it was really important to get in front of them as many times as possible and help them feel comfortable with where we were going as an offense. So it wasn't a big challenge. Most of the work was really done by the time that we joined as a staff. And so more than anything, I think it was just an opportunity for them to get to know us and feel comfortable with the new guys that were going to be coaching them.
Biggest chunk, Ben Criddle, ESPN 960, biggest chunk of the recruiting class, offensive line. Could you briefly just talk about each one of these guys? Campbell Barrington, Harris LaChance, Tyson Lewis, Connor Payne, Jacob Smith.
Yeah, so with the offensive line, obviously you're always trying to restock, and when you have a position where you've got almost half the offense out there at any given time, you got to recruit a number of guys for that position. It's a developmental position, so it takes a while sometimes for those guys to be ready to play. And so you have to recruit a greater number of them than most other positions. So signing 4 or 5 in any given year is the goal. And these guys fit what we're looking for, given the fact that one of the advantages that I think we have the opportunity to have at BYU is to have size. We can have size and length at all positions, really. But we certainly want to start that with the guys who are getting up to the line and putting their hand down and coming off the football. All these guys we think are similar in that they fit the size requirement. They're also guys who can move, or else we wouldn't want them here. Guys that are big and just big can't do anything more than a refrigerator can to block someone. You got to be able to move as well. All these guys can bend and can move as well. And so I think they all fit into what we're looking for in terms of having big guys that can move, and most importantly, I think they're the right kind of kids.
Coach Grimes, John Kuhn, Utah Valley 360. Looking at the skilled position guys that you brought in, how did they kind of fit into your offensive scheme and kind of your philosophy of what you want to do on offense?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with just saying that you can fit most guys into an offense if they're really good players. And so sometimes you're trying to fit guys into a system, but just as often in college football in particular, you're trying to fit your system around what your guys can do. And so I think all these guys fit what we're looking for. If you want to start with the quarterbacks, both are guys who obviously can throw the football. If you can't throw the football, it doesn't matter how athletic you are, but they're also athletic guys. And I've been asked by several people with regard to either of the quarterbacks, is this guy a developmental guy? How long do you think it's going to take? And yeah, they're developmental guys, but so are the rest of our players. All players are developmental guys. But some positions maybe more so than others, and quarterback is one of those, but we like the skill set of both of these quarterbacks in terms of being able to throw the football and move around well. The 2 tight ends fit in line with a lot of the great tight ends that have played at BYU for a really long time, and playing with multiple tight ends is something that I like to do, and I think it's been an advantage here at BYU for a long time. Both these guys are guys that have the size and the toughness, I think, to block, and both of them are really good receivers. They can run and catch and create the kind of mismatches that position typically can do. 2 big receivers that can both run, great ball skills, good ability to run after the catch. Again, the kind of guys that you can do a lot of things with, and I feel like both of those guys will fit just perfectly into what we want to do on offense. Amoni fits right in with a lot of the backs that we've had here at BYU over the years. A big guy that runs well, also has good ball skills, could be a 3-skill back. I think a guy that can do all 3 things a back needs to do: run, catch, and block. We really like Amone as well as all of these offensive players. So I think all the skill guys will fit in real well with what we're looking to do.
One Kalani, what were your selling points to the recruits coming off a 4-9 season, and what did you say to them to ultimately close with these kids?
Regardless of the type of season you have, you try to highlight the best part of the school and about our program and the vision. So whether you had a 9-4 season or 4-9 season, I think it's important to communicate to the young men their place in the program and where we see that they can fit, and also how they're going to develop and what position we see them playing. I think that's something that the young men want to talk about, and when they come on the visit and they get to see the school, it does itself. The recruiting kind of takes care of itself, and I think getting the parents involved and having the family involved, it helps out as well. So, our mindset and our recruiting is going to be all about communication and talking to these young men. I mean, today is a great day for us to invite these 22 young men to our program, but it's also a really good day for others to find places to play college football, and for a lot of other young men, young women to find places to go to university and represent their schools and their families as athletes. So it's in recruiting, sometimes you try to make it all about your school rather than what's important, and that's the young man. And if you focus on them and where they fit better, I think you can really help yourself and also help him find the best place suited for his skills and what he's expecting from college.
Well, to follow up on that, what have the last 2 months been like for you with all the staff changes, and how do you kind of see the vibe of the program right now?
Yeah, it's been busy, but the guys on the team are working really hard, and we're trying to balance a lot of different things, but enjoying being a part of BYU and being the head coach, and so it's a lot of fun for me to get to work and try to put it together and try to get a great season going on this fall, and that's the mindset, is just keep working, keep going through it. So we probably had to do a few things differently this year than we've had the couple years past, but it's all work when you think about it, and I just appreciate having these guys come in as new coaches, and just it was an easy transition for them to go right into recruiting. That's something that they've always been doing, the experience that they have in their background as coaches, and so it was easy for them to get accustomed to that and to connect with the recruits that weren't signed yet, but also it was important for them to connect with the recruits that were signed, and let them know what they represent on the field, how their philosophy, and I think it's been really good. And then doing that and communicating with the current roster has been challenging more for them, but as a head coach, I've been really appreciative of how they do it, and they've been great professionals at it.
Ed, can you tell us the background of the Australian punter that you signed, how you guys found him, and that sort of thing?
Sure. He, like a lot of Australian rules football players that have an interest in playing American football, they sign up to be trained by a group called Pro Kick Australia. And so I went over there right after the last game of the season and visited with Pro Kick Australia and watched some of their training sessions. At that time, there were several guys that we were interested in, but one of the things these guys do a really nice job of is matching up the right prospect with the right school. And so they felt like Danny, being a little older guy that's been more mature, he's been out work, he's been playing professional Aussie rules football, that he would be a good match for BYU and the honor code, and would be able to come in and buy into his view of the honor code would be the professionalism, and that was the attraction for him, and of course the academic reputation of BYU. So it was a good fit there, and at that point we brought him over here to make sure that he saw the place and that it was a good fit from his perspective. He will be primarily a rugby-style kicker or rollout-style kicker. He can play other positions, but he's very raw. He'll be one of the better athletes on our team, one of the biggest, fastest, strongest guys on our team. And he was still very much a prospect to attain the highest level of Aussie rules. And in fact, one of the things he shared with Coach Sitake and I at dinner one night was that his dad was disappointed that he was not chasing the Aussie rules football dream. But he's one of these guys in Australia, and American culture, he really follows it, and American football follows it, and it's a dream come true for him to be here.
Question for Elisa and Ed. Throughout your careers, you have been known to be able to, from a personal level, be able to identify, recruit, and develop very talented football players. Sometimes they're known as developmental players or diamonds in the rough. Who were you guys personally recruiting this go around for this class?
I think the whole staff did a good job. Just like Coach Grimes was talking about, kind of double, triple teaming on kids and getting involved, whether it was personal relationships or things that coach and a kid find something that they have in common and just start recruiting a kid to build relationships. But one of the, for me at least, I'm looking down this list. One of the running backs that was the running back that we signed. Really, really close relationship with the family. Even though he's going to end up playing on offense, think that he's a guy that can come in and continue to develop as well as be a guy that could contribute early. Chinonso is another guy. Chinonso Aparo is a big kid with a big frame with a lot of ability that is still raw. Only been playing ball for 2 years, and so we think that his best years are ahead of him. Really, I think every single one of these guys down the list, I mean, you can say Coach Lamb or myself or Coach Kalani, Coach Guilford was part of that, and when Coach Hadley came on as well, we threw him right into the mix to help out with recruiting all these kids. And so we, like you're saying, and I think Coach Grimes mentioned it earlier too, is every kid that comes in essentially needs some kind of development. Some are a little bit farther ahead than others. But we're really excited about the group that's coming in, at least defensively. I think that they'll come in and do a good job here, and to probably echo what he was talking about, these kids are good fits for BYU and kids that see the honor code and the lifestyle and academics as a strength instead of something that'll hold them back in their progression.
Kalani, what's it like dealing with the extended recruit? I mean, you look at a guy like Amone, who was originally committed elsewhere and then comes to BYU after a mission, that type of thing, that happens periodically. What's that like, adding that into the mix as far as the high school kids you're recruiting, the missionaries that are leaving on missions, the junior college guys? It just seems like an extra element to try and juggle in the recruiting process.
Yeah, and I think that being able to have, you always have to count on that, especially at BYU, where whether they're graduate transfers or transfers or guys have gone on missions, I think the job is try to get it get it right the first time, so we don't have to recruit them again. But I've made the statement that I don't recruit missionaries. That's not how I work, and I've never recruited a missionary to come here. So other schools are free to recruit our missionaries. That's what they do sometimes. But being a return missionary myself, I think that they're more involved in doing something that's more important at the moment. So. Afterwards, whether we have to recruit them again or not, I think most of the guys that signed are BYU guys from the beginning. And being here now, I think we have some guys that we signed the first signing class that are coming back from missions. So I think that would make it a lot easier. But the numbers are always going to be skewed a little bit, and you're going to have to make some room in different places and be creative and flexible, because recruiting just never stops. Whether a guy is on a mission or a graduate transfer or whatever it is, it just never stops. And the goal is try to get the best talent on the team and try to win, but also be respectful of what they're doing and what their personal life. Or for me, missionaries that's a part where I just want them to go out and serve and enjoy the moment as a missionary, and then afterwards we'll deal with it. But right now, I think the goal is to try to get it right the first time. And just stick with the guys that were with you from the beginning.
Kalani, now that the staff is complete, how would you describe the 6 new guys kind of as a group?
Yeah, I love them. They're hard workers. They have a lot of experience, and they know their craft. And these are guys that knew from the beginning they wanted to be coaches and got right into it. And I look at the group of them. They went into places that and took jobs that weren't ideal for a lot of other people. And being a guy that's done that myself, I appreciate guys that just want to coach. I believe if you find your passion and you find something that you love, you worry about the money later. And I have guys on the staff that are great examples of that, and they can mentor young men to find their passion, whether it's coaching football or whatever their passion may be in life, and then help them find that and go with it. So that's. These guys are great professionals, and they work hard, and they love being mentors, and their interaction with the players and the recruits is something that I've been really impressed with.
What was yours and the staff's approach to prospects that might have been that were once committed to your team but then uncommitted? Did you still pursue those kids, or Was there any resources or time put into them still?
Well, it's hard to put them all in one statement, right? So they're all different cases, and so I think there's yeah. So it's really be hard for me to. I think you're just setting me up for something here, you know, because that's hard. If I went by each one of them, then they're different cases, every one of them. But like I said before, the goal is to help the young man find a place that he'll succeed at, and hopefully that's here at BYU. But if not, then we're good with helping young men get to other places and you know, find a school that's suitable for them, even if we play against them. So when it comes down to it, it's their decision and their families, and we try to include parents and families in the decision. I think that helps it be a little bit more solidified, and it helps what we're about here at BYU.
Kalani, Jake Hatch from the Zone Sports Times. Maybe for you or Jeff, but can you talk about the Romney brothers? Baylor, of course, already enrolled in school here, and Gunner signing today. Can you talk about them and what you expect from those two players?
I'll let Coach Grimes talk about it.
Obviously an athletic family, and you know, it would be I think unfair to talk about both of them together. Baylor's obviously a good player and a good athlete, a guy that could probably do a number of different things, and certainly glad that he's here with us already and has made a good impression on us as coaches, on the strength staff, and on his teammates, for sure, in a short amount of time with his work ethic and his athleticism. But we think he'll factor into the competition this spring. And then Gunner obviously is a really good player too, a big, strong receiver who I think is not only a talented player but the right kind of kid. I mean, the guy's all business and is very serious about his training. Has a plan to get here and compete right away, and we're looking forward to seeing him do that.
Lonnie, would you anticipate there be any medicals given to players that might free up scholarships for you to recruit with?
Don't bank on them, you know. I don't wish any harm on anyone. But that's part of football. I think that happens a lot. But yeah, I don't think I can forecast that right now. We have spring ball, and I think the players, we care about them. We want them to have a great life after football, because it's inevitable. It's going to end, you know, one time or another. Whether you have a 18-year career in the NFL or not, football will end, and so they need to move on with life, and we want to prepare them for that. But I can't say right now if we're banking on any injuries or any medical things right now. We're still working through some guys, and you know, the first thing would be their health. That's number one, and then we'll go from there. It's all individual. It's a different deal.
What's the philosophy for your defense side of the ball when evaluating cornerbacks and defensive backs?
That's a good question for Coach Lamb. Coach Lamb and Coach Guilford done a really good job recruiting kids, and we're all on the same page with that. But I think Coach Lamb could speak to that.
Oh, one advantage we have with Gennaro and I is the benefit of working together for a number of years, and then being in a similar coverage system now for a number of years. And so we like to play at the line of scrimmage with fast guys and challenge guys up at the line of scrimmage and press coverage. That lends itself sometimes to a taller, lengthier cornerback body who has more straight ahead speed. And the reality of recruiting corners is that if schools play more off coverage, then they might be looking for a quicker, faster guy and sometimes those guys are a little shorter. And so that's a little bit of a niche that we like to go for. We also look at track times quite a bit and look at speed. And what we've done consistently is we've been more willing to take a risk on a fast, athletic corner that needs to be have some time to develop, and sometimes that even means a wide receiver, like in the case of Malik Moore this year, Keenan Ellis last year. Both of those guys play more of a receiver role for their high school. And Isaiah Heron is probably, in the time we've been here, I think I'm kind of looking at Gennaro to see if I'm right, but probably the most established corner, the most experienced true corner that we've had. And so we're excited about what he can maybe bring to the table right away in terms of knowledge of the game and experience actually playing the position. He probably has a shorter learning curve than some of these other guys, but the the upside of a guy like in this year's class, I would say it's Malik Moore, and then an in-state guy, Brock Davis. Those two guys are sub-11 100-meter guys. They've got they're 6'1" or more. They're at least 6'1", and we feel like they fit perfectly into what we're trying to do.
Follow up on that, will you still be evaluating defensive backs now that you're coaching the linebackers?
We all do that, yeah. And obviously, Coach Sitake with his background on defense, we're really we all speak the same language in terms of player development. The only acceptable result for us at BYU is to be nationally relevant, and to say that our recruiting is going to be nationally toe to toe with the top 5 to 10 teams in the country consistently, that's not going to happen. But if we have an eye toward player development and we do a better job of identifying guys who have measurables to be among the top players in the country, and then develop them appropriately and push them hard, then that's how we're going to have to get there.
You're in the release when you announced most of the new hires. It said you're going to be more involved directly with the defense this coming year. Is there going to be a specific role for you, or is it just kind of more of an overall involvement?
It could be both. Right now it's just I'm involved in just watching film and reviewing what happened this last year, and also trying to look at what we're going to do, who we're facing this season. And so, listen, I'm just there as help more than anything, and I think that Coach Tuyaki's capable of coordinating the defense, and I have a lot of faith in the coaches on the defensive side, and Ed Lamb and Gennaro Guilford and Preston Hadley. But I'm now that I've been here for a couple of years and kind of established what it's like to be a head coach here at BYU, I just stay busy, so I'm looking for things to do, and I just think it'd be nice for me to be in there and just try to help out as much as I can. I think my connection with Elisa, we've been together for a long time, and I've known Ed and teammates with him, and so we have familiar backgrounds, similar backgrounds, with Preston being with Jay Hill on that defense at Weber. So I think it's just going to be, I'm there to be both, I guess, and then be a guy that they can look to if they need me to go coach the open side end. I'll do that. They need me to coach the flashbackers. I can do that too. So I feel comfortable. And if they're a really good player doing good things this fall on defense, and I probably coached them. So that's what's going to happen this year. And if they didn't, then I wasn't coaching them that week. So.
As a follow-up to that, is that more of an indication of your comfort level with Jeff running the offense, where you can kind of more focus on the defense?
Yeah, I have a lot of trust in Coach Grimes, and I think Jeff and the staff that he has with Aaron Roderick and Fessy Sitake and Steve Clark, Ryan Pugh, and having AJ Stewart. I think that's a great staff, and I think that they're capable of doing it, but I'll be involved. I'll do mostly checking in with them, but I'm the head coach, so I have to be involved in all 3 phases, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. And like I said, if it's good, then I probably had a hand in it, right? And if it's not as good, then it's all them on their own. No, but I have a lot of faith in them handling. I've been really impressed with the offense and what they've been doing already, and the work that they've done. Not only in the staff room, but the stuff they're doing with the current players and recruiting. And so I've been really pleased with them, and I've been pleased with the defensive side as well, the same way. And I'm a guy that just can help out. I think we have 6 coaches on offense and 4 on defense as far as the assistants, and we did that on purpose with me, with the thought of me going and being involved with the defense. And we'll all be involved with special teams, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Coach, not to take anything away from these new guys coming in, but return missionaries, can you guys comment on the guys that will be returning and how good these guys can be?
Yeah, we're excited about a lot of the guys coming back. I think they're coming at different spots. I mean, I think Skylar Southam's already home and kicking a lot of field goals, which is good. So he's got a big leg, and so we're excited about him. I think that I'm just looking at Jaron Hall gets home soon, so there'll be a lot of competition at quarterback in spring, but it'll amp it up when he gets here too. So we're anticipating his return. I know I'm leaving some people out. We covered it a little bit in the early signing period, but it's nice because we're more familiar with those guys having them sign with us the first time, being able to come home 2 years later after their mission. So the great part about the signing class is that, when we've had our first one, it was just kind of like, well, we're excited to welcome them, but then half of them are going on missions. And same thing with this group. But on the other side of that, now we're getting some of the missionaries that we recruited originally back. And they're all starting to come home, and there's going to be some, they're all coming different times, from whether it's now till the end of July. We'll have guys coming back from their missions, and just really proud of the work that they're doing in the mission field and the sacrifice that they've made to help others and to serve others. And just really, I think that's going to help us out as a football team. And then with these guys here, I mean, there's a lot of potential here, and you look at all the players and the guys that we've recruited. The ceiling is high on all these young men, and we're excited about them. The skill and the athleticism and the speed's there, and we also have some size. And so I think we're a bigger team, we're a faster team, and we're a stronger team. And that's something that we should say every year, especially when we add players to the list. And really proud of the guys, the hard work that it took to get these guys here.
Follow up on that. How many of your current class are sign and send guys? Do you have a number on that?
What was that?
Sign and send guys that are leaving immediately for missions.
Oh gosh, good question. I think last time we looked at it, I can count right now. I think we have one of the linemen that's coming here right away. We'll have Braden Cosper and Gunnar Romney coming to school right away, and then Stacy Connor and Zach Wilson are already here. So out of the linemen, Jacob Smith is enrolling this fall. Stacy Connor and Zach Wilson are already in school and will be participating in spring ball. Dallin Hooker will go on a mission. Bento Poloto will go on a mission. Braden Cosper and Gunnar Romney will be playing this fall. Amonefi now will be this fall. He's already returned missionary. Chinonso is going to be enrolled this fall. Isaac Matua is going on a mission. Oliver Nasilai is going on a mission. Alex Muscala is an enrollee this fall. Viliami Tausinga is going on a mission. Talon Alfrey is going on a mission. Brock Davis enrolling this fall. Isaiah Heron and Malik Moore will enroll this fall, and same with Danny Jones. So.
Last question.
Kalani, this is your third recruiting class, and along with the state of Utah, has there been other areas of the country that you feel have posed a lot of opportunities to find talent into your program?
Well, I think we said, I said it a couple years ago that we want to search the world. I think that with technology, you can look at a lot of different people. So I think Chinonso came from Nigeria, and his connection, his background. So there's a lot of guys from different places, and obviously we sent Ed Lamb all the way to Australia. So for us, we need to take care of our priority will be the LDS athlete first, but there's a lot of LDS athletes all over the world, and I think there's a lot of great players that are the potential players that can be recruited by us. And so whether we sign them to a scholarship or bring them on as preferred walk-ons, I think we need to put work into getting guys, getting guys recognized and trying to get them here and sell them on BYU and connect them with the school. And so we're going to make it an effort to recruit signees, but then also make an effort to make sure that the rest of the roster with preferred walk-ons will match what we want, and then try to get us the type of talent that we need on this team. And that's you look at the long list of preferred walk-ons that have come through here and have gone on to be big-time professionals in the league. That's something that we need to carry on.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, you can ask all these guys questions.
Yeah, like I said, the other coaches are over here. Please get involved with them.
Thank you.